introduction. So thank you everyone for joining today. Just a reminder that if you're looking for Spanish translation, please go to the interpretation bar, and we appreciate your putting the information in the chat about who you are, where you're from, and any questions you have can also go into the chat. The order of events for today will be our discussion on glass and bird collisions with our experts. And I want to remind you that this series continues in May when we'll be talking about cats. And we're excited to have information from author Jonathan Lassos on cat biology. And we'll have visitor Albert and his Bengal cat Mia to talk about how to keep your cat on a leash or in a restrained area. So we hope you can join us for that important topic as well. Environment for the Americas is a nonprofit organization. We're based in Boulder, Colorado, but we have a team that works across the Americas to raise awareness of migratory birds and their conservation. And so they work from Canada to Argentina and the Caribbean, connecting people to birds and nature. And we appreciate their work. This year, if you're interested in getting involved or want to support our work, one of the things that we do is provide education tools for educators in all of these countries. We provide them in English and Spanish, and we invite you to donate what we call a happy kit, which is a kit full of educational materials that biologists and nonprofits and schools can use to share and spread the word about birds and their conservation with their students. So we'll have some information in the chat if you'd like to contribute to that effort. I always like to thank our sponsors. So many thanks to all of these organizations that have supported World Migratory Bird Day, this webinar series, and all of our work engaging people in protecting birds. And I want to give a special thanks during this webinar to Feather Friendly. They are donating window film and have sponsored World Migratory Bird Day for what I hope is just the first time, but we appreciate their support and all that they do to protect birds through their window film. Environment for the Americas has 4 pillars, which we base all of our work on, which is education and conservation, working to protect habitats, and then inspiring the next generation of conservationists. And then you'll find our efforts in all of our work, including World Migratory Bird Day, our work with the Forest Service and other organizations protecting hummingbirds, and all of our work providing internships and other opportunities to learn about careers in natural resources to early career professionals. World Migratory Bird Day over the years has addressed many, many pertinent topics, and we're so excited that this year our shared spaces theme is popular, just like many of our past ones, and you can see that over the years we have worked to address issues such as why birds matter, the impacts of plastic pollution, the importance of water, and the power of partnerships. And this theme, which we develop each year, we hope you'll get involved in that development. We want to put out topics that are relevant and useful for all types of groups and all sorts of locations. And so this year our theme is shared spaces, creating bird-friendly cities and communities. If this is your first time joining us, you'll know that each session we're hosting experts on different topics related to creating bird-friendly cities and communities. And so we're very excited today to have 3 speakers who'll be talking about collisions, a really important topic for bird conservation. So I'm excited to have Michael Majeur with Flap Canada, Brian Lintz from the American Bird Conservancy, and Paul Roloff with Feather Friendly. After they speak, we'll take questions, and then I hope you all remember that we have a competition associated with these webinars. So this week, we'll announce the winners of the collisions competition. Those people submitted photos of glass windows that are impacting birds and a short essay about the topic and why they need to do something to change the look of those glass panes. For the next webinar, we invite you to submit a photo of your favorite kitty. But that kitty needs to be demonstrating some way of keeping it indoors in some sort of outdoor restrained area or on a leash. So we'll look forward to having that information. You can look in the chat to see how you can register for upcoming webinars. and also how you can submit your contest application for the next competition. So we'll look forward to seeing what you have to submit. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Michael Major. Michael's the executive director of FLAP Canada. He is a passionate bird conservationist, and it shows in all of his work, including with the development and the growth of FLAP Canada and all of the programs that he's developed to help support it. And so without further ado, Michael, I'm going to bring you on for your presentation. Thank you so much for joining and giving us your time today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you very much for having me. This is exciting. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you're perfect.
Good. Okay, good. Apologies. My video, for whatever reason, isn't working. So we have to deal with that little picture of me currently on the screen. I have lots of content to go through, then followed by the other two speakers. So I'm going to, forgive me, but I might rush through this a little bit. There's lots to discuss. So in this first slide, what you're looking at is a sampling of the birds that our volunteers here at FLAP Canada pick up on an annual basis. This photograph has been extremely powerful at sending the message of bird building collisions across the globe. It does emphasize the gravity of this problem. It's estimated that there's upwards of over 1 billion birds dying across North America as a result of collisions with buildings. It's considered the second leading cause of bird decline, second only to cats. Next slide, please. I do have animations in this. Forgive me, a little bit of lag there. What we're talking about there's two primary issues that cause birds to fly with buildings. There's windows during the day. This is what I'm going to be talking about primarily today. And then lights at night, the nocturnal migration of birds being attracted to bright lights at humid-built structures. Next. When we look at the bird building collision issue directly related to windows, there's two primary reasons why birds collide with glass. There are the reflective qualities. Now, this image you're looking at, it's hard to tell where the real trees end and where the real fake trees begin in terms of their reflection. Extremely deceptive. This is not limited to birds. Humans can experience the same problem as well. Then there's the transparency qualities of glass, where they're seeing directly through the glass to something on the interior, or they might be looking through two corners of glass, or to something like a linkway, where they're seeing on the direct opposite side of a building, where there could be an extension of more vegetation. Next. So let's talk about what helps make glass visible to birds. Before I get into that, I want to touch on what doesn't work. Next, please. We've all seen this, bird of prey decal. This was the first bird collision deterrent product that arrived on the landscape. It was made in the shape of a bird of prey because they thought birds would see that shape, perceive it as a threat, turn around and fly in the opposite direction. Long story short, birds aren't that stupid. They just see this as a smudge on a window. They will not collide in the immediate area where something like a decal is adhered to a window, but all other exposed areas of glass around it, birds will continue to collide. Now, I call this snake oil, quite frankly, because the consumer is led to believe that this will work. They go out and buy one of these, slap it on their window, and magically the problem disappears. Sadly, as I mentioned, this doesn't work unless you meet a certain criteria, which I'm going to get into in these following slides. Just would encourage you, please, don't go out buying this kind of product thinking it's going to solve the problem. It doesn't work on a standalone basis. Next, please. So to understand this better, first look at this as we do as humans. In this particular case, you're looking at an interior office space divided by a transparent wall of glass. You'll notice that row of dots, kind of at our eye level as adults, and then lower level for perhaps children. We need to extend the same courtesy to birds to make glass visible so that they don't collide with these windows. The problem is birds don't collide at our eye level only with windows. They collide anywhere on that surface of glass, most commonly up to 16 to 20 meters above grade, which I'll get into in a moment. But if you go to the next slide, this attempts to kind of provide some clarity. The birds that tend to collide with windows are a combination of either insectivorous birds, they could be seed-eating, they could be fruit-eating birds. And they're moving through the canopy, trees and shrubs, hopping from plant to plant. And unbeknownst to them, the plant that they just left, let's say it's a tree, the one that they're flying toward now, if you click next, is in fact a reflection of the tree they just left. Now, this is a sampling of a product, funny enough, feather friendly, and Paul's going to expand on this in a minute, that shows full coverage. Whatever you put on a window In order to best work most effectively, it has to be a full coverage pattern. And again, in this case, it's this dotted pattern. Now, if you click next, what this means is the bird doesn't necessarily not see the reflection anymore, doesn't see through that glass. They just suddenly, as they fly toward that marker, they see that there's something between them and what they're trying to get to. And they'll veer away from that glass, trying to find a way to get to that reflection of that tree through another route. Next, please. Then there's the spacing. Spacing of markers do vary between Canada and the United States, but research has proven, without ultimate certainty, that a marker that is spaced 2 inches or 5 centimeters apart horizontally, or 4 inches, or in the case of Canada, 2 inches apart, will work most effectively at reducing the bird collisions. As you start to increase that spacing between those markers, you slowly but surely increase the potential for birds to collide at an increasing rate, an increasing volume, I should say. Next, please. Then there's contrast. Contrast is very important. In this case, pretend this is a window reflecting a dark environment. It could be a very dense forest that is shadowed from the sunlight. If you put a dark marker on a window like this, it will be very difficult for the bird to see. So if you click next, you have to go to a higher contrast, go to a bright marker. Now, if you click next one, this is interpreting what might be a reflection of sky or open space. If you have a light marker on that window, it's very difficult to see. So if you click next, you need to rotate to a dark marker. Ultimately, duotone is the best approach. That's very difficult to find right now, but we're moving toward trying to encourage this to happen because a duotone marker is visible under varying levels of daylight. And this is an example of what that looks like. If you click the next slide, creativity is key here. It doesn't have to be dots all the time. Sorry, Paul. You've heard me say this before. Look at every window like a canvas. It could be anything you want it to be. Now, I took an arrowhead, a symbol icon shape, and I just rotated it around into a combination of different variables of what a marker might look like using just a single shape. It's infinite what you can do to make a window visible to birds. There might be 1 or 2 more samples of that clicking through this variation. There you go. Thank you. Next, please. Then there's the surface of glass. Very important to place any marker for bird collision deterrence on the first surface or the outside surface of glass. What a lot of people will do is they'll buy, say, a decal or any given marker, and they place it on the inside of the window. Now, if you click next, this is basically showing a residential space. You can see the lamp, you can see the plant inside, you can see the table with the vases on it. Say in the morning, you can see directly into that space. But then as the daylight shifts, if you click next, that transparent glass turns into a mirror. So whatever you place behind that reflection is hidden. So again, this is why it's so important to place it on the outside surface of glass. Next, please. Now, this is the last slide, and this is kind of giving you an example of if you go out and buy a standard packaged product that is said to reduce bird collisions, quite often they might have one decal in there, they might have a small series of decals in a given package. In this case, this is an example of a product that sells maple leaf shaped decal with a package that contains 5 of these decals. The average residential window is 3 feet by 5 feet in size. So if you take that marker, slap it on the window, all that untreated glass that is around those decals continues to be a threat to birds. So if one is to meet the criteria that I just walked you through, if you click next, this is somewhat what your window has to look like. The packaging is not sold this way. You have to look for packaging that provides the proper spacing and density and contrast of a marker for it to work most effectively. So let's say you were to go out and buy this package and try to meet the criteria I'm talking about. You need 122 decals spaced in the fashion that you're looking at, which would come out to roughly $900. Not to mention, the average individual will never go to the distance in order to do this way. It's best to buy packaging that is set up to meet the criteria to make it easy for you, knowing it's going to work properly. And if you click next, I think that's my last slide. And I think just to bring you back to this image as a reminder of what we're dealing with. This is an award-winning image by a wildlife photographer, Patricia Holomonio, or I'm known as Patricia Seaton. It was the award-winning photograph for Wildlife Photographer of the Year in 2024, and it's now been all over the world, spreading the word on this given issue of bird building collisions. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate your presentation and more than that, just your work on this topic. And next, I'd
Thank you.
like to bring Brian Lintz. Brian is the Glass Collisions Program Director for the American Bird Conservancy. He's also the Bird City Network Director, and he works to reduce collision threats in the built environment, and he does that in so many different ways, from policy and legislation to action and building codes. So thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. And Michael, thanks for the good start there. That was excellent. So today I'm going to quickly go through what it looks like to implement collision solutions in your community. There are, like each one of these sections, there's a lot of information. So I'm going to give you some things you can explore on your own instead of trying to fit it all into 10 or 12 minutes. Next. So in general, there are really three pathways that you can pick to work on collisions in your community. You can work on home windows. And by the word home, I mean the place where you live. So it doesn't have to be a house that you own. You can be a renter, staying with someone else, just wherever it is that you live. Public buildings, which I'm referring to here, anything that is basically not a home. A library, a university, a workplace, a company, a manufacturer, any other larger typically building. And then you can also work to pass a bird-friendly building law, or what we call in the United States an ordinance. That requires people to build bird-friendly buildings in new construction. Next. Home windows are the great one because all we need for that is you. If you own the home, you can go do this afternoon. If you are a renter, you might want to get permission from your landlord, but you should be able to get it because many of these solutions can be removed when you move out. And the landlord may even buy in and go for leaving it up or doing some extra windows. So, I encourage you to take action immediately. Next. When we talk about how to figure out what to do at your house, we talk about 6 steps. And the goal of the steps is really to start by fixing the bad windows first. So not all windows cause the same number of collisions, and we want to start with the high collision windows first. The first of our steps is lights out. As Michael mentioned, light is an issue for migrating birds. So get the lights off overnight during spring and fall migration. If you turn them all off at midnight and you don't turn them on until the following afternoon, you've done it. You can also shield light fixtures so that light doesn't go up into the sky. If you're going to pick between doing the lighting or fixing the glass, 100% fix the glass. Lights are important, but glass is really what the big issue is here. So step 2 is then figure out what your problem windows are. If you'd like to just say, I'm going to do all of my windows, that is terrific. I would love to hear that, but don't make this all or nothing. You can start and make a big difference without having to do every window. We would define a problem window as any window you've ever heard a bird hit before. We all know the thud that a bird makes when it hits the window. If you've heard it at a window, it's going to happen there again. So you put that on your list. Then any big windows. So if you've got a large picture window or a large sliding door, the more glass you have, the more collisions you're going to have. So those should go on your list. And then any windows you've got that are near something that is a spot that birds like to be. So if you've got a bird feeder, a bird bath, a water feature in your backyard, a tree that has incredible fruit, put those windows on your list too and start with those. So that's your initial retrofit target if you're not going to do the whole thing. Then you make your plan. You pick a product and get it installed, which is step 4, but then you keep paying attention. So if you've done 5 windows, chances are, if you do the ones that we've identified as a problem, you're not going to hear any more collisions. But if you do hear another one, just be ready to go and address the window where you heard the new collision. And then step 6 is just keep paying attention. Next. The materials you can use for doing this, there are a lot of options. We on our website, which is birdsmartglass.org, and that link will come up a couple more times here if you don't get it written down. We've got a page for what to do at home. And it's got frequently asked questions, the list of products, all kinds of strategies. You don't have to necessarily buy a product. There are things you can make, and I'll show you a couple of those in a second. Next. When you talk about a public building, so a larger building, for these, the conversation is a little different. You don't own this building. So when you're going to someone to ask them to do something, you tend to need to have proof. You can't just say, you've got windows, can you please spend some money to put these things on them? Showing them collisions and evidence of this is going to be important. You do not need to do a 5-year study and publish it in the scientific journal, though. You can take action a lot faster than that, just with some photos of birds and a list of what you found and where and what windows they were at, so you can make a focused ask. The more people you have with you, the louder your ask will be and the more they will hear you. So if you can have a team, whether it's a bird club, someone from the organization, a local teacher, just having more than one person can help. These next 3 bullets all go together. Oh, not quite. The next 3 bullets go together. You have to remember the person you're asking to fix the window probably has never thought about window collisions before, and they almost certainly don't know that there's a way to prevent them. So if you go in with a demand and you're upset, it's going to make the conversation have the wrong tone. So you're there to make an ask and educate and kind of respect, not kind of, but definitely respect where they're coming from. And then be patient and persistent. The person you're asking to do something has a full-time job already. So this is an extra. And so you have to be willing to keep bringing the conversation up. And this can be a challenge to keep that kind of smile on while you do this for potentially years sometimes. But you can make progress over time. We have another database with products in it that you can use when they say, well, what do I put up on my windows? And if you go to that database, you can get all of the options that we have been able to rate for their effectiveness. Next. When it comes to actually retrofitting the building, you'll notice the steps are the same. And the problem window step is a little bit different on this one, though. So if you've got a really large building, or you're talking about like a university and they have a lot of buildings, it's expensive to do to fix a lot of windows. So you may need to focus in. And on a lot of buildings, you'll see, say, 10 or 20% of the glass will kill 70% of the birds. So you have a small section of the glass that does most of the damage. If you start with that as your ask, it makes the costs less expensive because you're not immediately asking for the whole building, which makes you look reasonable, which the people you're asking to take this action like to see. And it will get done quicker because, again, it's less expensive. And you're going to make the biggest impact by doing those windows. Next. Some of the products we talk about, this is a combination of both of the home and the public building windows. Insect screens are great. Solar screens are great. You see that on the upper left. If your window has a full screen on it, we consider that to be bird friendly. You can even get them that have suction cups, so you don't actually have to change your windows. In the middle is an Acopian bird saver, and you can order these online from their site. But what it basically is a thick rope that hangs in front of your glass. So anybody can make one of those anywhere as long as you have rope nearby. On the upper right is a full window film with lines in it. The bottom right is the ABC product bird tape. The middle is actually Michael, who just spoke, looking at a picture of Paul's feather friendly product, who's going to speak after me. So that's kind of a fun tie through for this talk today. And then the bottom left is tempera paint. So you can paint the outside of windows with non-toxic paint. The one thing you would want to do differently than what the picture shows is there's still a bunch of open spaces and gaps at the top. So at a minimum, you would want to put dots or lines or something else to fully fill the window. Next. When it comes to new construction, so someone wants to build a brand new building or they're trying to pass a bird-friendly building design law. You're going to start again by building a team. Building a team is really important, especially for passing a law, because you are asking your elected officials to do something. And the more of their voters that ask, the more likely they are to do it. Again, remember, this is an ask, not a demand, and you are an educator. So you have to assume they don't know anything and you're going to show them. Finding an insider is important. If you can get one person on a city council to be willing to say, this is my issue, or the mayor says, I want us to do this. Or if you're at a university or a business, if they've got a sustainability person or someone in their facilities team, someone who's responsible for the building, that one voice on the inside will maybe advance this more than anything else. So really finding someone who is willing to listen to you is really important. Again, patience and persistence. There's a building in Chicago, McCormick Place, you may have heard of, and it took, I think, 30 years for that building to get retrofit, but it finally happened, and it's a great thing. If you're going to start down this path, we've got a lot of resources for you on this too. We always recommend starting with our model ordinance. So that is ABC's way of writing out how to make a bird-friendly building that an architect can read and understand. And no matter where you're going to make your ask, it basically all comes back to those kind of rules. I have in red, contact us for help. If you are going to go down this path, this can get kind of complicated and there can be an unintended consequence. People are going to take the model and want to change it a little bit, and you don't want it changed so that it applies to no glass and you didn't meet your goal. So we're here to help. If you start doing this, please contact us and let us know. Next, I think this is my final slide. Just to show very quickly a couple of the kinds of materials we're talking about. Bird-friendly lighting, is everything is shielded and pointing down and it turns off overnight. Reducing glass is an important strategy. One of the big things that predicts how many collisions you're going to have is how much glass you've got. So if you're going to build a building that's 80% glass and you make it 50% glass, you've just made it better. The 50% glass building is not bird friendly. Excuse me. You still need to worry about that glass, but you've got a much smaller problem than you did if you made it with 30% more glass. You can cover the glass up. On the upper right, you see solar shading at the Tracy Aviary. There are a lot of different ways to do that with louvers and things that are becoming more popular today, especially as the world heats up. And then the bottom three are pictures of different types of patterns in glass. And those patterns can be made with an ever increasing number of technologies. Every year there's a new one. And you can really do anything you want as long as you follow some of our basic rules. And with that, I will send it to Paul, who's going to talk to you more about one of these products, which is feather friendly.
Thank you so much, Brian, and welcome, Paul. We appreciate Paul joining us as well, and thank you for your great talk, Brian. Paul is Feather Friendly is 18 years old, I believe, and Paul came to it from an early passion in childhood for the out of doors and a love of wildlife. He has a history in product development and in 2016 was offered the opportunity to lead Feather Friendly. So we're excited to have you on today, Paul. And if I can have you join with your camera, I don't see your camera right now.
Yeah, I'm actually on
There you are.
with camera. There we go.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to everyone today. And it's hard to follow Michael and Brian as two leading experts in this field. A little bit about Feather Friendly. We are a Canadian-based business. We've been in business for 18 years. We just went over 10 million square feet of product installed worldwide, with projects in over 34 countries. Um, we do all our manufacturing and distribution out of our head office just outside of Toronto, using North American made products. One of the things about Feather Friendly, we're about conservation and education first and foremost, while offering a tested and approved product tested by ABC. And we take great pride in the work that we do. Next. So I apologize. I'm covering a few things that both Michael and Brian have covered, but we can go through these quite quickly. So we talk about the biggest issues to bird collisions is reflection. Next, and you can go through all these animations. Next. So these are various pictures, and you'll see at the end why we've got this animation. Shows how deadly it is to birds. Those were all reflections in glass. Second issue is fly-through. A linkway connecting two buildings where it's backlit. A bird thinks it can fly right through to the other side. And the next ones, we have probably one of the biggest issues that is sort of more paramount now is clear glass railings, and bus shelters. So Michael already talked about the spacing. We do know based on science and research, this isn't something Feather Friendly developed. This is something that was set out and tested and proven. Next. Michael covered off what works, what doesn't work. So we talk about spacing, we talk about contrast, we talk about surface. Next. We actually recommend our black markers for fly-through because it's backlit and can be seen through. And then we talk about height and the area of glass. So we do know that there's legislation right across North America that has varying degrees of, I guess, standards. And, we do know that New York City is ground to 75 feet. DC is ground to 100 feet in the air. These are where the majority of the strikes are happening. Next. So we talk about type of structure. Commercial buildings get the biggest sort of focus based on their public. We do know this based on City of Toronto. We do know based on McCormick Place. The strike that happened, the mass strike that happened in 2023, in fall migration, they ended up killing 1,280 birds. In 2022 fall migration, they killed 771. As Brian mentioned, that building's been a known bird killer for, I think it's actually 40 years. And the Chicago Fieldhouse Museum, most of their bird collection comes from that facility, in upwards of 53,000 birds. Feather Friendly was installed on that facility in the summer of 2024, and the bird deaths went down to 18 in fall migration. And that's a reduction of 98.6. So low rise and residences are the biggest killers based on the sheer volume of them. And then we talk about surrounding habitat, water, vegetation, everything else that brings a bird to your yard or to a building area. It just creates another issue. Next. There's the water, water's life. And then we talk about light pollution. So Feather Friendly is a very big supporter of a lights out program as well as treating glass. And we feel it's the 1-2 combination for avian conservation. When it comes right down to it, light doesn't kill birds, glass does. So it's very, very important to treat glass. And next. So now we talk about effective solutions, and Brian touched on some of these. We talk about DIY with chalk pens or tempera paint pens. We've got paracord ideas. Next. So here's where we come into play. We manufacture and distribute American Bird Conservancy's bird tape with various options. We also offer our feather-friendly small-scale DIY. That's designed to treat a window, a patio door. You can see it's one row of markers at a time. The tape is lifted and it just leaves the markers. Now, in Michael's comparison on that, I think it was a 3x5 window would be about $900 in decals. Our DIY, one single roll covers a 16 square feet, so a 4x4 window. And that is basically at retail is about a $22 item. And that will last 8+ years. We do know of houses here in Toronto that have had that up for 12+. Now we get into the medium scale pro DIY. This is a product we launched 2 years ago that has gained in popularity massively. It's a cost-effective solution that is not labor intensive to do larger installs by volunteer groups, by people on their residences. And then we also offer our large scale pro product, which is what was used at McCormick Place and a lot of other buildings throughout North America and internationally. Next. Now, I just wanted to touch base on here, and I don't know if everyone can see my screen or not. Michael was talking about patterns and options. We do a lot of custom work. We are not just a dot company. We have 10 stock patterns that are dots, linear patterns, and we can do pretty much anything. And this was a project, and I don't know if people can see it. It's a Trillium logo that was done for a government project here in Toronto. We have the opportunity to do pretty much anything and everything. Some of the other patterns that we have are, dense patterns. We've got linear patterns. One of the big things that we do as a company to give back is we honestly believe that this is so important to continue the education, continue the conversation. So one of the things that we do offer is our project recognition program, and it is free. And we've had a lot of clients over the years take advantage of this. And we do free educational graphics. I realize that's probably showing in reverse, but what it does is it celebrates the project. It talks about why that there's markers on the glass, and it has the logos of the companies and parties involved. And we really think that's an important part of continuing is this education. We do a plaque of recognition. We also do printed case studies as well as social media. So we are here to support, to consult, to help with any project, whether it be someone's residence or whether it be a McCormick Place style project where it's 120,000 square feet of glass being addressed. We started out as a retrofit company, and we're doing more new construction because we are a viable long-term solution. And I'm happy to share next month, we're launching a new product called Feather Friendly Evolution. It's a material that we've been working on for over 4 years that now takes our current warranty of 6 years to 15 years. And it takes the durability and longevity from 15+ to well over 20-25 years. So we're talking 40+ migration cycles. Material costs are relatively inexpensive. What your biggest cost to any retrofit is going to be your labor and equipment. So that's all I've got. Thank you very much for everyone's time.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thanks for all the work that you do with the window film and making it available to everyone and affordable as well. I'm going to bring up the panelists and let me spotlight each one. And I don't know, Michael, if you're still having trouble with your camera.
I am. I'm sorry. I can try and maybe drop in a picture.
That's okay. I am going to ask Brian and Paul to keep their cameras on, though, so I appreciate that. And but before I open this up to questions, however, I'm going to share our winners for the competition, and I'm going to remind everyone of the upcoming events, which in May we have Cats Away with Jonathan and Albert and Mia and likely others. And then in June, we'll be focusing on native gardening, native plant gardening. So we invite you to join for those next two important topics. And then for the collisions competition, we're excited to announce three awardees who will receive window film. Out of Panama is Adoptabosque. They are currently working on the window collision issue to better understand that challenge, and they have been surveying buildings in the city. And this is just one example. I think they'll probably have many more, but this lobby building you can see exhibits some of the features that everyone has spoken about. And they've already found dead birds at this area. So we selected them as one of the awardees. Also, a school, Springside Chestnut Hills Academy in Pennsylvania, wrote in that they've been trying to raise money to do something about their windows. They have to date raised $182 to purchase window film, but I'm sure they'll be excited to be a winner in this competition. And then lastly is the Bureau of Land Management Field Office in Kanab, the Kanab Field Office. And you can definitely tell from this that those windows are potentially very strike prone and that the decals don't meet the criteria of distance and spacing. So thank you so much for all of you who submitted. Again, we invite you to submit for the next competition, which will be on cats. So submit a photo of your cat on leash, restrained, happy indoors, or otherwise away from birds. So thank you so much and congratulations to our winners. And with that, what I'd like to do is turn this over to our panelists to answer questions. So I'm going to take down the slide presentation so that you can see them. And there are questions already, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to share those with you all. So let me just take this one to Anya Dale, who says that our university is interested in doing some retrofits, but need to identify some funding first. Is there a good way to estimate the range of cost based on building facade and size to get an idea of what might be needed prior to putting out a request? Who would like to take that first? Paul.
Sorry, Brian, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but so one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time consulting with possible projects. We have a large authorized dealer network right throughout North America and internationally. So we can involve a dealer to be able to give you exact costs. You know, people ask us all the time for ballparks. It's such a dangerous sort of question. It's a loaded question because there's so many factors. You have to think about what's the access to the glass? What equipment is required? Is this a ladder? Is it scaffolding? Is it a boom truck? Is it a swing stage? How large of a project? To give you an idea, with McCormick Place, there was over 9 installers on that project for about 2.5 months. So you can understand that the labor and equipment costs add up quickly. Brian made a great point earlier, and we've done this with the University of Chicago, is where they've identified buildings in critical areas first. Do a phase-in approach. And in all honesty, I think it helps generate funds available for it because the powers that be see what it looks like on their building. Then they see how it works. And then they go, okay, now we can start looking at and budgeting other areas. We're going to be doing our 5th year of installs at University of Chicago this year. But I'm happy to offer further information. I can offer some ballpark pricing if need be. However, we really like to give you the true costs involved.
Thank you, Paul. Does anybody else want to pitch in on that?
Um, Brian, do you have something to say? Because I can add to that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Two things I can suggest. On campuses, there's an opportunity for a lot of creativity, and that's where custom can come in. And one of the techniques you can try if you are looking for funding is there are a lot of arts grants that you can apply for that have nothing to do with bird friendly, just want to support the arts that can go towards covering costs associated with doing some what would be called artistic installments on these windows on campus. So consider that. And in the flap experience, we're helping industry professionals all the time when they're dealing with big buildings on where do they start. And like Paul said, a building doesn't have to be all all or nothing. Start small, do little by little each year, but start with the most lethal structures first. As Brian said earlier, certain facades are worse than others. So that's where an assessment of sort is important. Maybe collecting data on campus can help you as well. But really important that if anyone's going to be investing money in doing this, and the money's only going to last so long, at least treat the most lethal facades and make that the first ones to treat, okay?
And I'll throw quickly on there. I agree with everything those guys just said. If you got like a campus situation, you've got 20 buildings, I would rather get the worst 10% of all 20 than to have me get one single building done entirely. That also is kind of conducive to laying out a plan. So you've got an action plan. You don't do all 20 in one summer. There are also student fees and green fees if it's a campus often, and the students in many universities have the ability to vote on how those are used. And I know Johnson County Community College has used those fees to retrofit many of their windows. And then facilities and maintenance. There's already a budget to take care of the building. Buildings cost money. So working your way into getting a small percentage of that, again, with a phased in approach, is really the quickest way to pay for it. It might take a little convincing, but anybody who owns a building like that has enough money to take care of this if they want to.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks.
And I'm sorry, can I add one more thing before we go? One of the things, whoever's looking at doing this, retrofits or there's more parties coming to the table now, so it can get a little confusing for people to choose the right solution. So what we share a lot of is make sure it's been scientifically tested and proven. ABC leads the way with that. Make sure that you're looking at something that has been tested and approved by ABC. Second part, look at the warranty. Not all products are created equally. Look at the durability and longevity, and then look at the cost. Those are factors that all need to be considered. We realize that cost is a big thing associated with this, but there's no sense investing $20,000 into a project that is using materials that is going to last 6, 7, 8 years. You want something that's got that longer durability, longevity. And there are several products out there like that, not just us, but it's do your due diligence.
Thank you. And I'm going to take a live one. So Robin Leroy, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Okay, thank you very much to bring me in. I'm Robin Leroy from Belgium. Good evening, everybody, for me. Yes, I have some remarks. I don't know, but I can bring some good news. Maybe you are not aware, but behind the screens there's a lot of things going also in Canada. And the importance of a bird coalition is on the high level for the moment. And a couple of years, the point was, like I heard here always saying, that cost is a very important issue. And there was a point from how we can bring dots on an industrial way on jumbo glass in the production. You can do it on a several way, but there was not a solution for doing on an acceptable price level and flexibility so that also the architects can play with. So a couple of years ago, I started with research in that way. And now I found a solution to bring lasers in the production process for jumbo glass, where you can, in a high speed of production, where you can bring the dots and the freedom of design in that jumbo glass in the production. So it's an enormous reduction of the costs. And in Canada, the first production lines will come on the market to produce this glass. And this is not only simple dots, because I heard the discussion about it's important, the reflection of the dots. But if you bring the dots on the front side of the window, you have the dirty things what stays in the glass. But we are now so far that we can bring the dots just below the surface, so you can clean your glass like a normal. The birds seeing very, very easily still the dots, and you have the freedom to make your design in the glass. So if one architect says, I want crosses, I want a flower, I want a dot, round, square in your window, the production can do what they want. And it's not stopped, because in the same time, you can also make the glass in the production Wi-Fi, mobile telephone transfer, because now with the UV signals, UV coating, it blocks the signal for the mobile telephone. So you have two winners. So you can make your glass bird safe, and at the same time you can make your mobile telephone signals can cross the glass. So, and also it's now possible that you can make the contrast. Like if the architect said, I want high contrast or I want low contrast. So everything is possible today. So this is developed the last 3 years. The first machines are delivered. So the manufacturers in the glass industry slowly come to introduce this solution in the market. So this was already in the US, and in Canada, it will come next year, I think. So it will be a standard very soon.
Thank
So
you so much for that. I will
just
you,
bring you
Robin.
this good news.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. I'm going to pass that to our panelists to see if any of them would like to comment.
I'll start. Exciting news. And this is the thing about this landscape. It's kind of becoming the Wild West. There's a lot going on. And any new technologies like you're talking about is good news. And we're also talking about sort of two different audiences or two different situations. There's the retrofit of an existing building, and then there's new construction. And your option is either based on new construction or a retrofit where they're actually replacing the windows and bringing in new windows, all of which are in demand. So this is wonderful news. That's my 2 cents worth. Paul, Brian, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yes, but there are two solutions. There are two other solutions. It's possible. We are thinking about this. So I'm not making machines. I'm just the inventor of the solution. So I have nothing to win or to lose what I'm telling. So for the old buildings, there is a mobile solution in developing where you can take out the old window, bring it down in the machine very quickly, drop it in the machine, and then replace the old window in the old frame. Another solution is that you have a mobile system that it's not gluing, but with vacuum, you put it on the window, and then a laser equipment is going over the glass on the surface and bring the dots on the window. This is
Thank
more
you. I think what I'm
complex.
going to do, Robin, not to interrupt you, but I want to give some other questions and opportunities. So let's put this one at the end again, if you want to further the discussion after we've taken a few more questions. And I'll pass the next question, which I think fits well with what you're discussing, which is from Suzanne. Does the public building, do the public building steps apply for buildings not yet built? They have a new hospital that contacted them about bird safe practices. And then we'll get back to the previous discussion at the end of our webinar.
Yeah, they do. So for that, I would start by looking at the ABC model ordinance if somebody needs to have something to reference. Basically, the model ordinance says you should do 100% of the glass should be bird friendly to 100 feet high, so 100 feet above the ground on 100% of the buildings you're building. Then if you've got a green rooftop, it's 3 stories next to a green roof. And then there are all kinds of extra like hazard building features, like the building connectors that Paul showed pictures of, that no matter what you end up deciding to do are things that should be bird friendly no matter what. And then in that ordinance is how you would find the materials to then meet the requirements. So that is in the model ordinance and on our website. We do consult with architects and glass companies. So we tried to put enough materials up there that somebody who is interested can kind of choose their own adventure and figure out the right way to do this. We are going to be launching a brand new website. So all of our things are going to get updated in the pretty near future too.
I see some questions, and I'm going to answer this one. Some questions about the Happy Kit information that we put up at the beginning of the webinar. The Happy Kits are education kits that have information in them. You can purchase them. We have a website and an actual shop with our Migratory Bird Day materials. And Paul has an education kit too about collisions that we're making available to, I think we have a certain number that we can provide this year. But yes, if you want to go to our website or if you want to email us, you can, and we'll put that email in the chat as well. So at the beginning of the webinar, we had discussed our Happy Kits and that we are always looking for funding to help provide these Happy Kits to partners across the Americas. So we appreciate any contributions to making that available. In terms of any other questions, there's a question here about Guardian Glass. Can any of you speak to Guardian Glass and its availability?
Anyone?
So through testing glass, we end up talking to a lot of glass companies and printing companies and etching companies. And for many of the glass, I mentioned there's all kinds of ways you can make a pattern on glass. And for a decent set of those, many glass companies can do it. A lot of them don't. A lot of them, they're all starting to think about this, I think, at this point, but many of them don't offer bird friendly. But you can ask for it and they can do it. So the example I like to give is there's something called frit, F-R-I-T, which is like a ceramic that is kind of like bonded to the glass. And you can make whatever pattern you want out of frit. Lots of companies sell glass with frit on it. Most architects use frit in little tiny dots to block sunlight. And so their goal is to reduce the heating and cooling costs. And that is how most glass companies know of frit. If you make those dots bigger though, and you do them correctly, they can work for shading and for birds. So there are a lot of glass companies that you just have to ask and give them the details of what you want. Guardian is definitely one of the leaders in this space, though. Guardian has been invested in working on collision solutions for a very long time.
Thanks, Brian. And Michael?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that you'll find a lot of these large glass fabricators, window manufacturers and glass fabricators are now introducing a bird collision deterrent product line. And you'll find a lot of them are doing variations of each other that all go back to the dotted pattern that was first launched here in Canada in 2010. The rule of thumb I give, kind of make this simple for people, is if you have difficulty seeing a marker on a window, it's going to be no different for the birds. And I really think that is a very simple way of looking at this. So any given product you're looking at, you need to make sure you're looking for first surface treatments, as was mentioned, and just make sure that what you're looking at, you can actually see. If you're struggling, well, then you may want to think twice about the given collision deterrent you're looking at, whether it's a frit pattern or an etched pattern. That's what I find is helping a lot in terms of determining if it's going to work more effectively or not. Okay.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm going to take just two more and then let our panelists go if they need to leave. But Rosalina, I'm not sure if yours is more of a comment, but she says in large government buildings, we can identify the sites most prone to collisions as evidence for interventions to promote conservation. And then Aaron, this is an interesting one. Developers often want lots of glass in commercial buildings, and incorporating bird safe glass can be expensive. Are there any equations that would give you guidance, like if the amount of glass in the building is reduced by 5%, the increased cost of the bird safe glass would be paid for?
Right. Interesting.
We've been trying to tackle that one in a way that would provide a good answer. And it's really tough because there are so many variables. Yeah. How many panes of glass do you use in your window? Is it insulated at all? Is the space filled with argon, which makes it even better? How thick is the glass? What is the case around it? What is the rest of the building? What is the pattern you put on? Anyway, so you can see like very quickly it turns into like 1,000 things, which makes it hard to make a general statement. We're trying to get to that though. The way I talk about that is if you're building an all glass building, glass is the most expensive facade or like material you can use to build the outside of a building. And so if you've got enough money to pick the most expensive thing, you've got enough money to add a pattern to it. And the total cost of whatever the change would be, if you compare it to the total cost of the building, is tiny. Yes, it might make the glass, the percentage increase on how much you pay for the glass might seem like a significant percent, but if you look at the percent of the increase of the cost of the building, it's really small to have that building not kill wildlife. So that's how we talk about it. And I wish I had that formula. And if we ever get there, I'll try and make sure you all hear about it.
And Michael.
Yeah. There's a number floating around, but about what that actual number is. And as Brian said, there's so many variables that makes it really confusing. But the one that really is floating around that's gaining traction is any building that is like a mid to high rise construction, that's new construction, can be in and around 1%. Now, I think that's a relatively low number, but it's not much higher than that. So when you look at the overall cost to add bird-friendly glass to a building design, it really isn't that much more money. Bottom line, these developers can afford this. It's just a mind's eye perspective that this is going to break their bank or it's going to make the saleability of their building less attractive. And that's proving to be, in both cases, a bit of a moot point. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of them bringing them in and having the conversation with them and showing them that the numbers aren't as painful as they might think it is.
Thank you, Michael.
One fast thing to back what Michael said. New York City passed a bird-friendly building law that required it, and they passed it in 2019. It went into effect in 2020. And every single building built in New York City that has gotten a permit to be built since 2020 has had at least 90% bird-friendly glass in the first 75 feet. And they're still building buildings just like they were before. None of that has changed. Nobody's going out of business. It's something you can do, but again, the understanding and the perspective from their side, it's one more thing somebody is asking them, and it's a little bit of money that might not end up in their pocket. So you can see where somebody would be coming from, but it is not a cost that's going to really hurt the bottom line or break a project.
One thing to add to that very quickly, sorry, is the fact of how important legislation is. We know of buildings that have been spec'd as bird safe, needed to be bird safe from the beginning, but in areas that do not have legislation in place, soon as the costs of the project start to go up and above budget, they start looking at cuts. Bird safe is one of the first cuts.
Yep. It's unfortunate. It's true. And I'll add to that, here in Canada, it is now an offense to harm or kill a migratory bird due to a collision with a window. And this has gained a lot of traction here in Toronto. Yeah, this is huge. And I think it is having a strong impact on people that are perhaps second guessing or sitting on the fence and going, you know what, I'm not going to retrofit my building. I think this is something that's really important. For someone that's considering, at least here in Canada, not to do this, because they could be facing a lot of problems in terms of legal enforcement. And then there is, if they don't do it and someone comes along after the building's constructed and said, guess what, you're going to have to treat your windows, the cost to do that is far more expensive than had they just done it in the first place at the construction level. So, there's all kinds of reasons they can argue about this, but they're futile arguments, quite frankly.
Thank you. So I'm going to end with a rephrasing of the statement that I read from Rosalina. And thank you, Amanda, for pointing out the Spanish, which was Rosalina was asking, how can you identify the sides of a building or the windows that are most prone to collisions? How would you detect that?
Oh, boy. You want to take that, Brian? I can add to it if there's anything that you can't don't cover. But
I've talked too much. Why don't you go?
Okay. Look, it's pretty simple, quite honestly. When you look at a given window, if it's reflecting a concrete jungle, a parking lot, it's going to be far less likely to be experiencing a high collision rate than if it's reflecting a park, a vegetated space, a beautifully landscaped property. So that's one really big one to look out for, right? Is there a lot of presence of vegetation? And if so, maybe look at those ones more closely. I can point you to a quick, I think there's like 7 or 8 questions on one of our websites, birdsafe.ca. It just simply asks these questions, yes, no, and it will tell you if that given building that you're looking at is a certain level of lethality. And if it is in that lethal range, then you really should be addressing that given building, that given window on that given building. Okay, that helps a little bit. But yeah, just simply look for what is being reflected in that window, or what are you seeing on the adjacent side of that transparent window that might be attracting birds toward that window, and it's going to help you identify which ones might be more lethal than others.
I'm going to add a couple things to that too. Monitoring the building yourself.
Yeah.
Spring and fall, especially, because that's when collisions happen. But collisions happen every day of the year. It's not just a spring and fall issue. Would let you have enough data that whatever you see, you're probably going to be getting the worst windows. Just if you're finding birds, what you're finding is likely going to be identifying the bad spot first. If there's a facilities team or a maintenance team, those people often know where the problem is already, because they have to go clean up the dead birds. So you can get an immediate answer sometimes if you're lucky and you can get to the right person. And I've had this conversation with multiple buildings where, you come and they don't know who you are and you say, oh no, I bet you have a problem. And they go, this is not real. You can't talk about this kind of an issue. And I'll say, well, here's your building, and I'll circle 5 areas, and I'll say, I bet this is where you pick up the most. And they say, holy cow, yeah, that's true, because they already know. The last thing I'll say has been a useful thing we have done is to ask the occupants. So if it's like a business or a company, you can email everybody a little survey and say, hey, do you hear birds hit your window? Where have you seen that before? And also give them a space to put a comment. And you will get, oh, I hear it when I'm in the lunchroom or right outside my office. I get a lot. And thank you so much for addressing this. I really hate going into the break room because I know I hear birds hit that window. And that gives more motivation for the place to take care of it.
Yeah. Monitoring the building is key, and checking surrounding areas. I don't know how many times I've been out to a building to consult on it, and you'll see skeletons of birds, a bird head. You'll see scat from raccoons in the area. You know it's a feeding area. So that visual, even looking at glass, you can see where there's stripes. You know, everyone has seen the pictures of the outline of the bird dander or duster, or however you want to refer to it as. But you'll also see like dried liquid marks. I've even seen like down feathers sort of attached to the glass where strikes happen. So visual, take a look.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Yeah, I totally support monitoring. It can be difficult to coordinate that, especially if you're doing it alone, but still encourage you to do it if you can. One of the things I've noticed is if a building knows that they have a collision problem based on complaints from tenants, the tenants are typically complaining about the birds they're finding, which will be around the main entranceways or where they congregate to have a cigarette break or eat their lunch, where unbeknownst to even the tenant, at the backside of the building, where no one ever goes, is where most birds are colliding, right? And so that's why monitoring a building is important, to go around the entire perimeter, and you'll start to get a whole different set of numbers appearing in places that people didn't even think of.
Thank you so much. You have all gone over considerably. I want to point out one new resource for everyone too, which is the stopbirdcollisions.org, which is a coalition of organizations concerned about collisions, and it invites you to pledge to do something about collisions at your site. There are a lot of other messages and questions, and so I will save these and try to go through everything. And I know that everybody wanted to see the essays shared on the World Migratory Bird Day site, and so we'll make sure we get those up for you so you can see the essays that were associated with the collisions competition winners and also the winners from the previous one, the coffee competition. And then I know you'll be interested in seeing the ones from the cat one coming up next. But I want to again say thank you so much to our presenters, to Michael, to Paul, to Brian, for being with us today, for all the great work you do for bird conservation, to Paul and Feather Friendly for sponsoring Migratory Bird Day this year. We really appreciate the support. It helps make this possible, and I know our collisions winners will be happy. So thank you so much. We can turn off the recording now, and then if anybody wants to stay on for just a few more minutes, we're happy to do that. But if you have to go, I understand. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.